Welcome back to Local Body 2013, where we're with our second group of 4 candidates standing for the Mayoralty and Council this evening. Now let's meet our second group of mayoral candidates, and just to point out that like our first 4 that we met this evening, all of these candidates are also standing for the council in the Central Ward. Let's take a look at them. Aaron Hawkins is a broadcaster and writer. He says Dunedin needs sustainable jobs, warm and healthy homes and safe, affordable and efficient ways of getting around. He wants to lead an inclusive council and is standing as the Green Dunedin candidate. Olivier Lecroix claims to be a part-time lion tamer and coffee roaster. He wants to construct a new Dunedin if elected as mayor, focusing on jobs and keeping any rates increases in line with inflation, also reforming its city council bureaucracy. Lee Vandervis is a sitting city councillor and former businessman. If elected as mayor, he would bring 30 years of successful business knowledge and political experience to re-energise the city's administration and leadership, and wants to pay off debt faster. And finally, Andrew Wiley. He's a golf professional whose leadership experience includes national and local board representation. That includes owning and running companies both in New Zealand and overseas, and being a local employer. Now, as with our first group of mayoral candidates this evening, each candidate will have a minute to explain why they deserve your vote. That'll be followed up with a question from myself. Starting on the left of the panel with Aaron Hawkins, tell us why voters should pick you for mayor this election.
Dunedin needs sustainable jobs, warm, healthy homes and safe, efficient and affordable ways of getting around our great city. We need to support existing businesses and help create new ones. We urgently need a scheme to retain graduates to Dunedin and to lure them back after they've travelled, worked or studied further afield. I'm a graduate who stayed here and worked here, and I want more people to have that same opportunity. We need to protect and promote our wildlife industries, both our natural wildlife and our creative wildlife. I'm committed to developing a warrant of fitness scheme for rental properties and expanding the scope of the Warm Dunedin scheme for homeowners. We need to fix our bus service, continue to invest in smart cycleways, and make Dunedin New Zealand's most accessible city for all ages and abilities. I'm passionate about fighting not just for us here now, but for the future generations to have the same quality of life that I've enjoyed here in Ōtepoti, Dunedin. Vote 1, Aaron Hawkins, for Mayor and Central Ward. Kia ora.
Aaron, now you're a broadcaster and writer. What skills would you bring to the council table that are missing?
Well, I think that we need a broad range of representation on council. There is more to the Dunedin population than small business owners, although they are an important part of the population. But I also have governance experience. I sit on the Blue Oyster Arts Trust and the Dunedin Fringe Arts Trust here in Dunedin, so it's not foreign to me. Governance, and I'd like to bring a voice for that community to council that has sadly been lacking up until now.
Excellent. Aaron Hawkins, we'll hear more from you later in the show. Moving on to our second candidate this evening, Olivier Lecroix. Tell us why voters should select you for mayor this election.
Well, my name is not Olivier Lecroix. My name is Olivier Lequeux, so in case you have any doubts, it starts with an L, and it's page 20 in your booklet. Look, I stand in front of you because I love Dunedin. I came here 17 years ago. I'm of French descent. I want to stay here. I'm very parochial, and I think if we work together, we can achieve great things. We don't need to spend more money. We've got everything we need here. We just to make sure that the money we spend is spent wisely. What I would bring to this council is a bit like probably what Aaron would do, is enthusiasm, youth, different perspective. You've got a very clear choice this time around. You need to get rid of the old guard. Vote for change, vote Olivier Lequeux.
Excellent. Just with the bell. Very good. Olivier Lequeux. Very good. We'll go with that. Now tell us, what skills do you think you'd bring that are missing around the council table?
Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, just simply. You know, I think a mayor doesn't need to read a balance sheet on a regular basis. The mayor is there to, is a cheerleader. It's just like in a sinfonia, he's the director. He makes sure that everyone gets along together and that the people that have certain expertise use their expertise for the benefit of all.
Olivier, we'll hear more from you later in the show as well. Moving on to our third candidate, a sitting City Councillor Lee Vandervis. Tell us why voters should select you for mayor this election.
I'm running for mayor as the alternative to Mayor Cull, who has fallen ill with the common disease of debt spending. The DCC debt graph is in my advertising to prove that Mayor Cull's debt spending has been even worse than Mayor Chin's. I have voted against debt spending since being a councillor in 2004 because debt interest payments suck the economy dry, reducing development, jobs and community well-being. Mayor Cull has failed to stop the mostly useless $40 million spend on our town hall, tens of millions in stadium bailouts, bureaucratic waste, and now he wants to debt spend a further $47 million on Cycleways, losing 200 central city car parks. As Mayor, I can lead paying off our stadium debt by absorbing the Otago Regional Council, selling off the harbourside anti-development leasehold land, and ensure that the new council promotes arts, culture and other industries to help Dunedin thrive again.
Lee van der Wis, as councillor around the table, what's made you want to step up for the mayoralty role?
As I've just said, I believe that the direction that the City Council has been going in is the wrong one. I believe that I'm the only available mayoral candidate, not the perfect mayoral candidate, but the only available one that has the big picture, long-term view of local government. We need to absorb the regional council because they waste $30 million in having a duplicate bureaucracy. We need to pay off the stadium debt because as long as we keep the interest rates running, we will never be able to progress Dunedin at all.
Excellent. Moving on to our next candidate this evening. We'll hear more from you, Lee, later in the show. And Andrew Wiley, our fourth candidate standing for Mayor, tell us why voters should select you.
Well, I'm all about growing jobs and growing Dunedin. My family and I moved here 10 years ago. We've loved it ever since. Dunedin really has a lot going for it, but we really have lacked some vision in the last while. We need to be proactive rather than being reactive. We need to turn around and we need to look at growing revenues, not just reducing costs. Dunedin needs to grow. It needs to grow through jobs. It needs to grow through people wanting to live here and having an opportunity to live here. We want to turn around. We want to make Dunedin a 21st century. Dunedin is a great community. We've got everything on our doorstep. We undersell it, we undervalue it. Let's move forward and let's really grow the opportunities that we have here in Dunedin.
Excellent. Andrew, you're a golf professional. Why are you looking at what skills would you bring and why are you looking at stepping up to the mayoralty?
Well, I'm fortunate and I'm one of these Kiwis that moved away. I lived overseas for 13 of 16 years. One of the things I've looked at since I've moved back to Dunedin, or I moved to Dunedin 10 years ago, was all the job opportunities that were here. We really don't capitalise on it. It's a 10-minute city. You can get from one side to the other. We've got a great infrastructure. We've got great academia. We've got great hospitals. Everything's here, but we don't promote it. We don't sell it. And you know what? A lot of the world would love to move here. But what opportunity have we given them?
Excellent. Andrew, tell us that you'll sum up there. We'll come back to you later in the show. We'll hear more from you and our other panellists later in the show. We'll go to a break now. After the break, we'll look at the issues, including the biggest challenges facing the city over the next 3 years. Back in a moment. Welcome back to this Local Body 2013 Mayoral Special, where we've got the second quartet of mayoral candidates standing for your vote this election. Firstly, to all mayoral candidates, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing Dunedin City over the next 3 years, starting with Aaron Hawkins?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that we face as a city is balancing the repayment of debt and maintaining the quality of life that we have here. Yes, we have a very serious debt problem, but if we fixate too much on that, it could be in vain. There's no point in getting back in the black if we're left with a city at the end of it that nobody wants to live in or work in or study in. So that's not an easy challenge, but I think that is the greatest challenge facing council for the next 3 years and probably beyond.
Olivier Leclerc, what's the biggest challenge you see facing the city in the next 3 years?
Well, it's been the same that has been going on for the last 9 years that I've been involved in local politics. I would say it's the lack of leadership, the lack of vision. And we've lost lots of manufacturing jobs recently, lots of service jobs that if we had paid attention to the global economic environment, we would have known was going to happen. Invermay was written a few months ago, a few years ago for that matter. The University of Otago is going to be facing amazing changes, and I think we need to be at the forefront of the changes that are happening.
Excellent. Lee van der Wis, the biggest challenge that you see facing the city in the next 3 years?
Is to lead local government out of it's addiction to debt spending. If you look at everything that has been done in the last 6 years at least, it's all been done on debt. It's all been done with very short-term views in mind, and we have no way of paying for major items like, for instance, the stadium. The stadium was supposed to be paid by profits from Dunedin City Holdings Limited. They made a $5 million loss last year. They're supposed to put $23 million a year into paying for these things. It doesn't work the way it is. We've got to have the long-term view.
All right. Andrew Wiley, for you, the biggest challenge?
Well, it's growth and jobs. We really have to move forward. The population, or working population in Dunedin, is continually shrinking. We turn around, really, we've lost 5,000 odd jobs in the last period I've been here, 10 years. The only thing that's really grown our economy has been the university. So where is the vision from the council? Where is the progress? We really have to turn around and find a way to build a stronger community, and jobs is the key way to do that.
Excellent. Moving on to another issue that has been a big issue in this campaign, the council's large long-term debt that's been mentioned by many candidates in this campaign, both direct to council and through the holding companies. Now, CEO Paul Orders has done a good job of helping trim council costs and spending, but with his likely departure, is there a danger that the brakes will come off and the credit card will come back out? We'll start with Olivier. What's your views on debt, and is there room to spend more?
No, as I said previously, I don't want to spend more at all. And whether Paul Order stays or goes, it's irrelevant. We've got a council that just decided to spend, I understand, millions and millions and millions of dollars on cycleways. I think I'm the only cyclist here. There was 2 bikes this morning when I came to your studio on the road. So this is a ridiculous. Already we've decided, the council that you should vote out, please, has decided to spend more of your money.
Excellent. Lee Vandervis, obviously debt's a big part of your campaign.
It's fundamental, but the structure that actually creates that debt, I think, is even more important. What we have is a local government, regional council and city council, who between them are the real drag on the whole development potential of Dunedin. We need to bring them together. We need to create a unitary council, and that unitary council needs to cash up the harbour side leases that are currently strangling most development around the harbour side.
How many
If
staff?
we cash them up and sell those leases, A, the harbour side will benefit tremendously from other development, and B, we can use that money to pay off the stadium debt, get that monkey off our back that currently is sucking us dry.
Under your proposed model of a unitary council, Lee, how many staff between the ORC and the DCC will lose their jobs? And what message do you have to those families, and what hope do they have for further employment opportunities? You've been talking about this for 6 years. How many people will lose their job if you merge those 2 councils?
If you merge the 2 councils, there will be a significant number of job losses, and those job losses need to be lost because they're bureaucratic wastes of everybody's money. Those people currently paid by ratepayers will, if they don't find another job, then be paid by the state through the dole. The net benefit for Dunedin will be immediate, it will be running into millions of dollars, and the ongoing benefits will be vast.
So your economic development strategy is sending council staff to the dole queue?
That is a necessary first step to streamline a council that currently wastes, in the DCC's case, a good part of the $100 million a year it costs to run, which is ludicrous for a city of this size, and then an extra $30 million that the ORC wastes, being a regulatory authority when the DCC does most of the regulation anyway.
Now, we'll come to a little bit more about the cost of the council in a moment, but I will let Andrew finish up this question for council debt. Are you concerned about the level of debt and concerned about increased spending?
Well, the first thing is debt is going to be a relevance of council. That's the hardest part, is how you control the debt. So you turn around, we've got basically revenue coming in, and we've got the debt. What we need to find a way is a way to streamline the costs or grow revenue. The more you grow revenue, then obviously you're going to get more money to put back in and pay off the debt. The biggest thing that I really look at going forward is you're going to have interest rate rising. The bankers I've talked to and reading the media, interest rates are going to go up. We're not going to go down. So that's a big conscious aspect. And I agree with Lee, it is a key issue. The bottom line, though, is we can't cut away from community. You turn around and look at Mosgiel swimming pool. Mosgiel have been crying out for a swimming pool for a number of years. All they're hearing right now is, we'll push it off, we'll push it off. Now, to me, that you've got to look after community at the same time.
Excellent. Now let's take up on that issue a little bit more that Lee picked up on. The Dunedin City Council still employs over 700 people, which a couple of our council candidates earlier have suggested is quite a lot for a city of our size. Is there scope to cut costs further, to trim services and reduce excesses? Lee?
The direct number of staff that the DCC now employ is, I believe, in the 600 area rather than 700. There has been a bit of trimming of senior management by Paul Orders. I was hoping for quite a lot more. What he's done is good, but all he can do is trim the staff side of things. What hasn't been trimmed is what the elected representatives have been spending money on. The $40 million that we spent on the town hall that was supposed to give us a new entranceway and a completely rebuilt Glen Roy, they still spent the $40 million. We didn't get a new entranceway. We didn't get the Glen Roy done either. We got some fire stuff done and a few access changes. This kind of wanted spending, which has been completely out of control, is something which the council needs to be led away from. And I'm that leader to do it.
Andrew, picking up from that, is there scope to cut costs further? You've indicated perhaps not?
Yeah, no, actually, I think there is. The one thing that I've looked at, and I've followed the DCC for quite a while now, having run for council back in 2010, I see it very much a silo mentality. You know, they're living in their silo, they're not turning around and looking, branching out. Globally, if you look around, councils are getting leaner, meaner, and more efficient. I don't see us embracing the technology. You just have to talk to anybody trying to go through and do some work on their house.
Resource consent.
Resource consents, but also even turning around and going through the manual and looking at all the fees. You know, it's just ridiculous how many boxes you have to tick and how far you have to jump. We can be a leaner, faster, and more cost-effective council.
Aaron Hawkins, would you agree with that?
I think that I would be very wary of reducing staffing numbers. A lot of people compare the size of our city to other cities, like Tauranga, for instance, and why should we have more staff, employ more staff as a council than them? The fact is we have a number of fantastic institutions, museums, public art galleries that aren't offered in cities of this size, and that's part of the attraction to get people get skilled workers to come and live here. The question around neurosurgery, the neurosurgery campaign in 2010, we were going to lose neurosurgical services. I mean, the fact was we didn't have neurosurgical services at that stage, and they were struggling to attract people to Dunedin because it's a really hard sell. We don't pay as well as people do internationally. Dunedin is a lifestyle choice, and we need to maintain those kinds of institutions if we're going to attract skilled labour to set up and to work here.
Now, Olivier, summing up this section, you've indicated rates rises no more than inflation, room to cut costs.
Yes, I think, we all agree. What will happen under my leadership, the DCC will be more efficient. And I would agree with Lee, we will lose people, working bureaucrats and technocrats that are not efficient. I would say probably we'll lose about 100 of them. But I'll give you an example. For example, we've got a bibliobus, we say bibliobus in French, a bus that goes around with books, the library bus. And I think, why don't we have one of the city council officer with a little computer part of that bus and offer people to pay their rates or help them. Sometimes people cannot come into town instead of using the bus, which is empty most of the time because people don't read anymore.
Excellent, Olivier. Thanks for your time. More questions to come for our candidates after the break, including the issue of cycleways and council's role in any drilling. Back in a moment. Welcome back to our Local Body 2013 special with our mayoral candidates. Here with our second group of candidates this evening, Aaron Hawkins, Olivier Lecoeur, Lee Vandervis and Andrew Wiley. Continue with our questions. Now, there's been a big increase in spending on cycleways around the city, as some have mentioned, with more to come, potentially at the loss of some inner-city parking. Departing Councillor Bill Ackland suggested it was a pet project of a few councillors. Is there genuine support and need for this increased push for cycleways around town in a city which is not very flat? I'll let Olivier start with that because you brought up the bikes, Olivier.
Yes, I mean it is totally irrelevant. It is mind-boggling that someone decided that. I'll give you another example. If you go 357 Joe Street, please go there and see what this council is doing with your money. $10,000, maybe $20,000 has been invested in some bike racks in front of a drugs shop and in front of the Robbie Burns bar. It doesn't make any sense. I cycle. I'm the only cyclist. My daughter cycles every day. You know, it's very hard to go up the hill. We are a hill city. Let's go. I agree with the cycleway around the harbour. I think it's good. Recreation, perfect. But through town, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Lee Vandervis, Cycleways, is that a pet project or genuine spending?
It's worse than a pet project. It's the result of some cycle fanatics that have actually managed to take over the City Council. A $47 million spend on Cycleways when we're already 623 is the latest update. $623 million in debt is insanity itself. Not only do they want to put the cycleways right up and down the one-way street system, they want to lose at least 200 car parks in the process, costing us another $250,000 every year in lost car parking
Lee,
revenue.
how much of that $47 million is NZTA funding? How much of the $47 million is NZTA and not council funding?
Two-thirds of it is taxpayers' funding. A third of it is ratepayers' funding. We pay rates and tax. Just because two-thirds of it is paid by taxes doesn't make $47 million any bit less nutty.
Absolutely.
What we have is a situation where we simply can't afford to keep digging the enormous hole that we're already in.
Andrew Wiley, is spending on cycleways sensible when we're going to lose car parks? Dave Cullard, I think, mentioned roads for cars, not for parking.
Well, I think the first thing about cycleways is I'm a big fan of tourism, and around the harbour is going to be a great boost for tourism. So I'm all supportive of that. I totally disagree with putting cars and cycles on State Highway 1. That actually makes no sense whatsoever. You find me another city around the world, and this is where I look at, go look and do the research, that actually has made cycling work. The interesting part for me is that living in Vancouver through the late 90s, they had the exact same debate 15 years ago. They made cycling work by taking it off the main arterial routes. And it worked very effectively. They brought together the schools and the key areas where people would cycle. So the first part you're going to start with cycling is, link the schools in South Dunedin. People are going to maybe cycle to work in Dunedin, but I'm sorry, I live in Andy Bay. I'm not cycling home and up the hills. Those are things that really don't make a lot of sense to me. The last part about that is that $30 million of the 47 is from NZTA. We don't get that money to put into roads. That money, we only get allocated X amount down in Otago and then down in Dunedin. That money is then taken away from another project that could actually benefit a more broader or wider range of part of the community.
Aaron Hawkins, are the other candidates right in their opinion of cycleways?
No. I think this is critical infrastructure for us. I think what you'll find is there is incredible latent demand, and thankfully, Andrew, thanks for reminding me, I have researched this. There are cities that have made it work. In the late 1970s, Copenhagen, for example, invested reasonably heavily in commuter cycle transport. And
European.
As to the concerns around car parking, I think that's something of a red herring. There's a study that came out this year.
Is a priority.
There's a study that came out this year in New York City, where in areas where they invested in pedestrian and cycle-friendly areas, retail spending went up by 50% in those areas.
So take it down George Street, take it down Princess Street.
You find me a retailer that wouldn't appreciate a 50% increase in their retail spending, I'd love to meet them.
I supported safe cycleways when they were putting them into the South Dunedin area. They get some use there. I supported payment even of the very expensive cycleway that they're putting around the peninsula. Where I draw the line and say this has gone far too far and you're getting fanatical about it now is where they want to spend $47 million and they want to carve up our central city and take away all the parking and put cycle lanes in instead, with the mayor saying that parking is simply an added bonus for having paid for all those roads.
But how do you turn around?
What is your message then to people who can't afford to run a motor car or
take the bus, especially when we've absorbed the regional council, and I'm all for a very flat $2 fare for buses anywhere in the city.
It is only $2 now.
That is something that I would pay money for. Now, if you want to get from Waikari down to the university, it's $5.70, which is nuts. It's cheaper to get a car.
Absolutely.
It should be cheaper on the bus. If the DCC, a unitary council, was running the buses, we would have a bus service which people would actually use. We would have buses with people in them rather than just a driver.
I'm going to hold there so we can get another issue in before the ad break. So we could go on for another 5 minutes here, but let's continue with another issue. Anadarko's announced that they're set to drill a test well off the coast of Otago Peninsula next year with the hopes of striking natural gas reserves or maybe oil. Shell's also considering test drilling, although 60 metres off the coast is actually the decision of central government. Is it something that council should be welcoming and supporting? I'll start with Lee on this one.
It's 60 kilometres, not 60 metres. All right?
60
kilometres. If you get 100 metres in the air, you still can't see 60 kilometres over the horizon. It's a good distance away. The reason that I believe that we should embrace the exploitation of the Southern Basin is A, it's mostly gas, which doesn't have environmental impacts as oil does, and B, even if there is oil found there, look at what's happened to New Plymouth over the last 30 and 40 years. Have they had major problems? No, they haven't. Have they had enormous benefits? Yes, they have. Andrew actually has the figures on it. He quoted them the other day of the enormous benefits that New Plymouth has had as a result of the oil industry. Every time I go through New Plymouth on one of my national tours that I used to do regularly, I could see development happening there every time I went through, and I wish that Dunedin could have that development.
Andrew, why should Dunedin Council be welcoming any moves towards drilling?
Oh, embrace it. You know what? We're talking about growth. We're talking about debt and things like that. The key part about what the oil and gas industry are going to bring to town is dollars. And it's going to benefit right throughout the community. In Taranaki, they turned around, the GDP is worth over $2 billion a year. That's through the whole community of Taranaki. You're talking about 5,100 families, that's 5,100 families, directly or indirectly receiving benefits from the oil and gas industry. You turn around, we're not looking at a little field over there, it's 30 times, the gas field is 30 times the size of Maui. It's a 45-year lifespan. Now you find me another industry that really would like to come to Dunedin and invest that much money and create that many jobs and give us that many benefits. You know what? I don't see it happening. So why shouldn't we be rolling out the red tape for these people?
Aaron Hawkins, not something you welcome?
No. Another key statistic in the Taranaki story is that oil and gas extraction in that region has the lowest employment rate per impact on GDP. For every $1.2 million made in Taranaki through oil and gas, it employs one person. That's compared to 33, for example, in retail.
So $2 billion a year in GDP is wrong?
There are huge economic and environmental risks to us. In Dunedin, we have a $100 million a year wildlife tourism industry.
It's gas.
Wherever there is gas, there is oil. That's a smoke screen, and it's endearing that you buy that spin, Andrew, but it's not, unfortunately, the truth. In New Zealand, currently, the maximum damages we can get out of an oil and gas company for any damage done to the environment is $10 million. The Deepwater Horizon spill is $40 billion and rising. We don't have the money, either at a local body level or at a central government level, to pick up the tab at cleaning up after something that has little to no economic benefit for us.
What we do have here is the skills. We've lost Hillside, we've lost New Zealand Post, we've lost Invermay. When Shell came to talk to the council, and they've done it a number of times now, and I asked their chief executive, what do you most want from Dunedin? He said, skills. We have them. They need them. It's a match made in heaven.
How many oil rig engineers do you know currently unemployed in Dunedin, Lee?
I actually know there's quite a few that are travelling overseas to go work on the rigs.
Right.
Why can't we bring these people home? We're talking 5,100 families in Taranaki. You know what? 5,000 families in Dunedin benefiting from the oil and gas. That means supermarkets. That's kids in schools, hospitals. Every part of the community would benefit.
Andrew,
to answer Aaron's question, I personally know Chris Dodds, who is a professional diver, been on oil rigs all of his life, currently looking for a job, would love a job diving on oil.
Olivier, final word on this before we go to the break, Olivier?
I'll try to be quick. Look, I am pro-business. I'm pro-jobs. If it's demonstrated that the risks are as minimal as possible, there is always a risk in anything we do in life, okay? There's no gain without pain, I think there is a saying. Now, the DCC says no to the hotel, says no to new industry, and says no to the Dalai Lama. Look, please vote Mr. Curl out. This is terrible. This is embarrassing for Dunedin.
Thank you, panel. Good debate there. We'll be back in a moment with more from our candidates and a final word from our second set of 4 candidates this evening. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Local Body 2013, where we've had a vigorous debate here, even in the ad break here. Continuing with another question for our candidates. I'll start from the left of the panel. Now, Dave Cull has led the Greater Dunedin grouping around the council table and in their current election campaign. For Aaron, we'll start with standing as the sole Green Party candidate. Are you concerned about the potential for council to be under the majority of control of a single political grouping? Aaron, what do you think about the idea of tickets and parties and things in local politics?
Well, I think it's something of a misnomer to refer to Greater Dunedin as a single political grouping. They represent a fairly broad range of ideologies in and of themselves. I chose to stand as I chose to nominate myself and was selected as a representative of the Green Party to stand because I think it's a more honest way of running for public office. We've had a long history of mayors and councillors with political affiliations, and what I'm saying is this is who I am, this is what I stand for, these are my values and principles, and I would love for you to vote for me if you share those values and principles.
Olivier, we did in the previous section with the first 4, I think it was 3 versus 1 as to whether they agreed with that or not. Are you concerned about the potential for council to be majority controlled by a single grouping?
I'm not concerned because I rely on the voters to vote what I call the Crater Dunedin, not Greater Dunedin, Crater Dunedin. More rate hikes and more debt. So don't vote for them. There is a gentleman from Crater Dunedin, Richard Thompson, who oversaw $16 million lost at the DHB. Lots of these people should not be on the council. We could go on, but they're not here, and it would be unfair, I've been told.
Lee Vandervis, you're a current city councillor. Have you seen that Greater Dunedin group operate as a party, or are they independent?
They claim independence. They operate basically how the mayor wants them to, mostly in terms of voting. They do vote individually on some items, especially some of them. There are several councillors, the deputy mayor would be a classic example, who I can't ever remember voting against whatever the mayor said, even if he was arguing the opposite a minute before. We have a problem with groups on council that isn't just Greater Dunedin. We have a problem with, for instance, the liaison committee that Mayor Cull set up, where he handpicked a few of his Greater Dunedin pals and the chair of finance and strategy, and they had this liaison committee which no councillors were allowed to attend. I had to gate crash this group in the end to get it to stop. It was illegal. It was absolute case of caucusing, decisions being made without most elected representatives having any say.
Cool. And Andrew, finally to start with you, you're standing as an independent. Is that the way to go?
Oh, definitely. It was interesting at the Opo Church the other night. One of the Greater Dunedin councillors turned around and said he looks forward to working with like-minded people. To me, that is the worst thing a council can have. You turn around, you get a group like Greater Dunedin in, you're going to get sheep running in the same direction. You know what we want is we want a council that has a voice from different areas, different sectors, and can actually work in the vision of Dunedin. You know what? A lot of people may not like Lee on council, but you know what? He is a great voice for a good part of the council. You've got to have diverse views. You know what? I'd look forward to being on council or on a team with Lee, Olivia and Aaron. You know what, we're totally different, but it would be a good team.
Excellent. Some robust discussion this evening. Now we will finish with a final word from each of our candidates. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to remind you why you should be voting for them. We'll start in reverse order this time. We'll start with Andrew down the camera. Tell us why voters should be selecting you this election.
You know what, we can either go for 3 years of the same old, let's tick this city over, or we can actually turn around and step up and move forward. We've got a lot of opportunity at our feet. We just have to look at what we've lost in the last 3 years. Other areas of the country are laughing at us because we talk about being open. We've talked about the hotel. We've talked about the jobs being lost. We've talked about the oil and gas. Let's roll out the carpet and let's actually move forward. we've got these opportunities. Let's embrace them and let's take an opportunity to move forward. Let's grow Dunedin.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Lee Vandervis, final sum up for voters this evening.
Andrew has suggested what we've lost under Mayor Cull. We've lost respect of all Dalai Lama followers. We've lost $176 million in the way of new debt. We basically lost most of $40 million that was wasted on the town hall redevelopment, tens of millions in stadium budget blowouts. We've lost Hillside, New Zealand Post, Invermay. I, as the Mayor, would turn around these losses. I would look at the big picture. I would get a unitary council. I would get councillors to recognise that our long-term future has to be much more careful and not debt spending.
Olivier Lecoeur, final sum up. Why should voters be picking you this election?
Well, I love Dunedin. I think it's the most beautiful place, the most amazing place I've ever been, and I've lived everywhere, from Europe to the US to Australia. If you want change, if you want cheerleading, if you want happiness, vote Lecoeur.
Excellent. And final word goes to Aaron Hawkins. Aaron, tell us why voters should be selecting you as Mayor this election.
This election, we have three options. We can vote for more of the same, a great leap backwards, or we can work together to create a sustainable vision for Dunedin as a great 21st century city. My priorities to do this are focusing on sustainable jobs in Dunedin, warm and healthy homes in Dunedin, and safe, efficient and affordable transport options to get us around the city, which is rather large. I want to lead a more open and engaged City Council that makes a more active effort to find out what you think rather than waiting for you to come to them. And vote 1, Aaron Hawkins for Mayor in Central Ward.
Excellent. Thank you very much to our panel this evening, Aaron Hawkins, Olivier Lecoeur, Lee Vandervis and Andrew Wiley. Thanks for your time this evening. We'd also just like to point out a 9th mayoral candidate was invited, Steve McGregor. He was unable to attend because of other commitments. So that's the 8 mayoral candidates you've met this evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Remember, we're here every night, weeknight at 7:30, meeting the candidates around the city. You can also catch repeat screenings of the show at weekends and in the weeks leading up to the close of postal voting. Remember, it's your votes who will decide who runs the city for the next 3 years.